Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The discussion around the budget and the 13 trillion deficit in the 49.7 trillion 2025 budget proposal being financed through borrowing is not sitting well with stakeholders around the country. Last year, Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Wale Edun, emphasized that the 2025 budget reflects the administration's progress, focusing on fiscal sustainability and economic growth. He stressed the importance of balancing revenue, expenditure, and borrowing to create a conducive environment for economic expansion. Successive governments have continuously borrowed huge sums to finance our budgets, with the 2025 budget, which is already before the National Assembly, toeing the same line. Joining us on this show to discuss alternative pathways to financing budgets, including infrastructure, budget, and servicing debt stock without borrowing a kobo, is Dr. John Isemede, former Director General, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture, NASIMA, a certified international trade expert. Just yesterday, he was appointed a member of the steering group of the Institute of Export, UK. Welcome to the morning show, Dr. Isemede.
Good morning. How are you?
Good to have you. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you. How are you?
Well, quickly, two things.
Yeah.
A lot of, eyebrows raised about the fact that government is going to borrow over 52% to finance budget 2025. The narrative says, you are saying there are alternative ways.
Yeah.
And that government does not need to borrow. Well, the government is looking at revenue. The expenditure is higher than the revenue. The various assumptions have been criticized by other people. So which other alternative ways are you thinking of? Ways and means, perhaps?
No.
That's one. The second thing is about fiscal policy.
No.
All the persons we have had on this program to discuss that budget, they talk about a misalignment between monetary policy and fiscal policy being the main challenge in terms of either budget performance or the implementation at the level of capital projects. Now, what kind of fiscal policy outlook would you like to see to make the budget of restoration fruitful?
All right, thank you very much. Before I give you the straightforward answer, let us look at Nigeria, where we are coming from. Nigeria, there are 196 countries in the world, 55 in Africa. Nigeria is a member of ECOWAS. Nigeria is a member of the WTO. Nigeria is a member of the Commonwealth. The first question we should ask ourselves, other countries we look up to as our mates, are they borrowing the way Nigeria is borrowing? My president was here 2 days ago and said whatever the government is borrowing, it is the private sector that is going to pay. That is why with the tax policy and all that, we are still playing it up and down. Another issue is that let us look at where we are coming from. Nigeria got independent in 1960. We did not borrow kobo. And from in 1960, instead of putting our house in order, we put a foreign policy of helping other people. Our foreign policy, as of today, is not tied to trade. Nigeria does not even have a trade policy. These are part of the reason why we are borrowing. During the Nigerian Civil War, we did not borrow kobo. And in 1970, we had the Smith and Mother, we had so much. And in 1993, there was a mistake when General Abacha merged the official exchange rate and the government rate, 22 and the other 140. What did we see? There was huge capital flight. We started borrowing and money was, the embassies, their money to the neighboring countries. And in 1986, SAP was introduced. We started listening to IMF. And they would say that we should destroy all the commodity boards. We should devalue the Naira. The Naira was 87 kobo as of 1985 to $1. It became 1 Naira, 2 Naira to $, and today where are we? Why the siren of trade? Why the siren of aid? And secondly, why today our middle name is now borrowing? The first issue when you talk of solution, production. What are we producing? When I was in the university, there were more than 5,000 companies in Lagos. And Aba, Trans-Amadi, and Bompai in Kano. Today, what is Nigeria producing? These are the issues. The other area, what of the policies? The president of Nasima was here. It is not the duty of the government going about. It's the duty of the president. If you look at Vienna Convention of 1963, the ambassador is the marketing manager of any country. But today we have no ambassador. That is why the president is doing it. And when the president is going, it's not taking the organized private sector. How are we going to play? You have been to China, you've been to Hong Kong and all that. When you go there, you are talking to them. The first thing is that they give you your complimentary card. And they collect you. They will tell you, excuse me, in 2-3 billion, they cross-check, we see is whether this company is registered. But when we go out for such meetings and all that, you will see others with your iPad and all that. We don't even have complimentary card. And when they come back, the private sector does not get a technical report how to key in into the international business. Nigeria, at independence to the present day, 65 years by October, the military ruled for 28 years, the civilian 37 years. We have signed over 700 agreements, and those agreements are one-sided for importation. This is the bane. Sometimes we pity the customs. This is the guideline for importation into Nigeria. Where is the guideline for export? And where is the support for local production? This is why we are borrowing. 2024 will be better by 2025. Because by the time the companies we work for, or we were exporting their goods, and if we start importing, now we are importing things like what? Butter, Blue Band. Very soon we will start importing local Maggi. In the sense that even soap in your house, as I'm talking to you, coming from about 12 to 50,000 kilometers, is for the main raw material is palm oil. And palm oil price in Nigeria is 250% above the world market price. What are the solutions? What are the alternatives? Nigeria, Mr. President came up at the inauguration in Eagle Square and said subsidy is gone. All right. Look at the real sector. The president could equally fix the banks and so also and use that fiat to reduce interest rate to 5%. We have two houses, upper and lower. Nigeria at this moment cannot shoulder two houses, which will consider unicameral legislature. Nigeria, as of today, you were at the media chat. Mr. President Ed is happy with his ministers. How can a country bleeding? Because if you assemble all the unemployed people in Nigeria together, it will be the second largest country in Africa. What is our population? What is the population of Egypt? Ethiopia is number 2, 124 million. Egypt, 113 million. Congo DRC, 102 million. So, Nigeria does not need more than 10 ministers. We go, in 1963, the regional government will all collapse. Now we should equally consider the 6 geopolitical zones. Each will bring a minister making 6. Defense 1, making 7. Finance, foreign affairs. Then when we have one for, what do you call it? Minister of Special Duty, when one is on leave. Nigeria does not have that capacity as we are talking. Because what are we producing as a country? We will take it one by one. In petroleum, look at what Saudi Arabia is posting. And today we are talking about 3 or 4 refineries. How many working? We are talking of, in 2024, we are talking whether to buy in dollar or whether to buy in naira. And at the end of the day, nobody has shown us the cost of producing a barrel, for refining a barrel of oil in this country. Those are the things we you ask for. I think they have invited General Olusegun Obasanjo to come and say, hey, we say we come back, we report and all that. If a liter of petrol is 1,000 naira, how much is it to refine that petroleum product? The second one, you talk of solid minerals. Look at South Africa. Over 30% of the GDP is from solid mineral. How much for in Nigeria? When you were in government, when I was the DG of Nasima, the contribution of solid mineral was 0.03%. Today, it's still up to 0.5%. South Africa is over 30%. When you talk of aviation, people go to neighboring countries to board. How much? How much?
Dr. Isemede,
yeah.
The other leg of the question,
All
what
right.
do you do about fiscal policy?
All right, the fiscal,
particularly trade.
All right, thank you. Fiscal policy. Countries of the world run on 4 legs, but Nigeria is running on 2 legs. And the fiscal policy is not matching the fiscal policy. That is why we have this high rate of employment. That's why the policies are not working. And that is why...
2 legs. Human beings are not supposed to have 4 legs.
All right.
They will become animals.
This is fiscal policy. Monetary policy must align. So also, what are the 2 back tires? Ministry of Trade. So also national planning. What are we getting from trade? Is trade aligning with this thing? A very good example was when central bank dabbled into agriculture. From there, they came up and said they want to take over export activities to generate forex. And funny enough, when I questioned them over the RT200, they did not read more problem. All right, if fiscal policy is aligning with with monetary policy, will you have over 50% of the population jobless? Will interest rate be as high as that? What today, the inflation figure? CBN job right from Edmond Committee of 1958 has not changed. It's not printing and making money. That is what is fueling the inflation. So the private sector is not comfortable. What is the role of Nexim and that of the diaspora? These are areas where we can get money because the Exim Bank of India and that of China, happy Indians and Chinese all over the world. You know Chinatown. China did not colonize 1 inch of Africa. They come in here, go to CAC, register their company, they bring in their things and all that. Which structure have we developed after signing over 600 agreements? We have been in ECOWAS. This year will be 50 years. ECOWAS trade is less than 5%. Africa is less than 20%. I was here on this seat when we were talking about Africa Continental Free Trade. What will be our benefit? So there are so many opportunities, but the only thing, there is a total disconnect between the government and the private sector.
All right. Thank you so much. Now, talking about Nigeria not having a trade policy, recall that we have a draft trade policy from 2023 to 2027, which hasn't been ratified. And there was just a change of baton with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. On coming into office, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole has said she was going to prioritize trade, look into policies, agreements, and ensure that it favors the Nigerian exporters. Why do you think we have taking so long to implement, at least, like you rightly mentioned, having that 4-year plan that was set to hopefully be a game changer and improve trade, in Nigeria, within Nigeria and even across borders? What is taking so long? And then the other part is that all these things you mentioned, we've talked about them a number of times. These, alternative pathways to funding. But we're looking at the 2025 budget right now. Some of these things would take long-term planning or would be achieved in the long term. In the short term, we have a debt burden on our hands right now. In the short term, is it possible to fund the 2025 budget without borrowing?
It is possible. When you are talking about the trade policy, for 22 years, Nigeria did not, every 5 years you must change your trade policy. Every 10 years, Incoterm, International Trade Agreement. That is done by the ICC, not by Nigeria. For 22 years. The one that was done by Dr. Agaga that was taken to Bali in 2013. That's why he could not, Dr. Abati, he could not join us in France in December 2003. All right, what is a trade policy? Tariff and all that, you negotiate your own tariff. You are not waiting for WTO and all that. And when you are talking of low-hanging fruits, one, oil theft can be stopped in 1 day because they are not being carried with bucket and jerry cans. Look at the figures. Then, when you now talk of subsidizing the neighboring countries, We sign all sorts of agreements without taking the private sector and the experts around. I have traveled around Nigeria, 774 local government. I have covered the continent of Africa by route, driven from here to Algeria and all that. And when we're having issues with Ghana, government officials were going there. And with the private sector, saying that this is not how it's supposed to be, because I know what we suffer to stop Nigeria from signing the EPA. Otherwise, today, it could have been a worse scenario. You are talking of the low-hanging fruits. Petroleum. We can produce beer in this country. I was in Unilever. We had a refinery. And we
still say it will take time. So like
it will take all right. What of agriculture? Agriculture.
So let me just go back to you talked about oil
3 months. Yeah.
You say we can solve oil bunkering or stealing of our oil in one day. How is that possible? Because if it is so easy to do, why has it taken so long? Understanding the critical, role that oil plays in our revenue generation.
We don't have security reports in this country. Is it possible?
So it's an unwillingness of the
government?
Okay.
All right, when you say you are subsidizing your neighboring country, are they going jerry cans or they are going trailers? Is the government of Benin Republic HSC to your own country that is a university? Production. What of agriculture? When the Mr. President came in, he promised us commodity boards. Yes. Have we seen the commodity boards? Don't you know what commodity board did to Western region from 1946 to 1986? All right, solid minerals. We cannot get something out of that. Aviation, tourism, we're talking about Morocco, Ghana, and all that. All right, the tax, we are talking now that people are needing. Is it possible, when you do government transaction in Nigeria, do you get government receipt? This is Ghana. You can't do business in Ghana without getting government receipt. What of the leakages? There are so many ways to fund this thing. And this it will even be worse if Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso should leave ECOWAS. We are talking of a market of over 800 million people, because Niger has a population of 30 million. Burkina Faso has a population of 25 million. Mali has a population of 25 million. They are part of ECOWAS. We are signed an agreement with them. We are selling cement and so many other things with them. So these are some of the things that they are things we can do locally. What of consuming made in Nigeria products? Nigeria cannot produce wine. We are importing things where other countries. Look at Malaysia. Malaysia is not as big as from here to Agbo. I went there, studied these things. We have sesame seed. We have yam. Nigeria is producing 73% of the total yam in the world. We cannot export one tuber. And we are talking of export, we are talking of ease of doing business. Why am I a fellow or part of the British exporter? This government don't want to see experts.
Okay, on that point, now, this morning the big story was around budget performance of the 2024 budget. And the report is that the overall budget performance was 43%, right? And if you break that down, 100% performance for recurrent expenditure, but just 25% for capital projects. So of course we know that salaries are being paid, we're keeping the lights on, and then the bulk of the money after that is going to debt servicing. Now my question to you is that it almost seems like a catch-22, a double jeopardy situation, because all of these incredible solutions you're proposing almost seem impossible to meet, because we are trying to get ourselves out of a hole that we're in. But we no longer even have, almost seems like there aren't even resources to get out of that place that we are stuck in. If you see that we can only fund realistically 25% of capital projects without going to ways and means or without resorting to, some form of a government shutdown, which I don't think we've ever had in this country. It's of course common in the United States and so forth. So my question to you is, what's the balance? Because I think some of these solutions are very easy to prescribe when we're coming from a level playing field. But how do we balance it when we're coming from such a massive deficit? Because before we can even climb to the top of the mountain, we first need to get out of the hole. We need to get out of the valley. So where do we strike that balance?
Thank you very much. It has never been so bad. And Nigeria did not get independent. What Nigeria was using in the First Republic was national rolling national rolling plans. It was not budget. Budget is just like a salary that you receive, but budget, whether today we are running a flexible budget, balanced budget, surplus budget, and all that. There is a big gap between the private sector and the government. The president of Nasima said it all here. Because in the past, it used to be the private sector and the government, military or civilian, we sit down, we look at the budget. We make contributions. And we said, all right, these are the tariff line. And if you are open your XC in November and the goods will arrive in January or February, it will not take the import duty of the region, it will take the rest. That's why producers were asked to pay import duty ahead. Today, we rely solely on import duty for customs. When you are talking of balance of trade and balance of payment, what is the government expecting from the export side? Because those we are borrowing money from, they are producing and they are exporting. So what are we exporting at the country? What you are exporting is crude oil. If OPEC allocation is even 2 million barrels per day, multiply 2 million by the exchange rate by the naira and divide by 230 million Nigeria, it's still less than 500 naira, which shows that Nigeria is a very poor country. What have we assembled that we are now saying that our foreign reserve is about $45 billion? How much are we owing? If you look at waste and means, how much is CBN? How much is the government owing the CBN? How much is NNPC owing? These are the things we put cash on the table. And see, what we do now is that let us reduce certain things. For instance, Mr. President was in the eastern part of this country, probably the railway line from the east to the north. The coastal road is there. The existing railway line that started from 1896 ended in Maiduguri in 1964. Can the country shoulder all this at the same time? What of agriculture? Under the Maputo Agreement of 2003, 12% of our national budget should go into agriculture. Should Nigeria be importing food? We're importing sugar from Brazil. Is that how it's supposed to be? We're importing the rice that was distributed during Christmas. Were they wholly produced in Nigeria? So let us look inward. Use our how many professors do we have in this country? For instance, look at Ministry of Agriculture. As at the time we got independent, Nigeria had no university. University of Ibadan, University College London. Today we have over 200 universities. And they all have faculties of agriculture. We have donor agencies. We have research center. Can we feed an average Nigerian? Go out and see goods.
Okay, so are you saying that of the 25% that we've been able to deliver on for 2024, our priorities are wrong on that 25%?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you now look at agriculture, agriculture is to provide food. Agriculture is to provide raw material for the industry and the excess for export. Why is over 90% of our revenue based on oil? Oil is a slippery product. We have been on oil since 1908. And by 1958, we started exporting crude. So also we are exporting cocoa beans. The world, are they exporting cocoa beans?
Okay, Dr. Isemede.
Thank you.
Well, look, they call it budget of restoration.
Yes.
Economic growth, stability, sustainability, all of that. But not all the problems can be solved within the next 1 year. Even now that the budget, we don't know when we'll get it.
Will come out.
If we were to prescribe priorities, specific priorities for the Tinubu administration for 2025, what will be those main priorities that we say 1, 2, 3, 4?
5.
Not long explanation.
All right.
Just
1.
what the priorities should be.
Cost of governance. 2, reduce the interest rates. 3, pump money into the industry. Reduce the interest rate. Then 4.
But they cannot reduce interest by fiat.
But they give
That's
us
that's not
what
how
of
economics works.
what of fuel price? It was by fiat. What of the measure? The mistake, the initial mistake was in 1993 during the time of General Abacha, when we made the interest rate. We saw what happened. So that was by fiat. If you cannot reduce interest rate, how can you now wake up the dead industries? How can we create job for the younger ones? You did not look for a job. I did not look for a job when I left university. There are people who have left university for 5 years. But the system, a lot have, when Britain got when Nigeria got independent in 1960, what was the population of England or UK? It was 53 million. Today they are 68. We are 230. And those who have moved out of this country, as soon as they finish, they get a job. Why are we not getting job? Because there's misplaced priority. Then let us focus on export, not import. Nigeria only has export policy. Nigeria has no export program. If we have export program, Mr. President knows how to target each MDAs. For instance, when you want to import into this country, you can stay in the comfort of your house, fill this thing online and that. But it's export like that. It's still disjointed. The most important, the funny aspect of it is that when you are talking of export, the only policy is that if you use NSP and you repatriate your money. But what of the others? How many markets have we developed from 1960 to the present day that we receive made in Nigerian products? Because when the embassies were here, Kenya High Commission, Germany and all that, you visit them and all that, they give you their this thing. But the ambassadors in this country, there was a time when I was the DG of NASIMA, I had one-on-one with foreign affairs. Any ambassador that is leaving this country must interact with the private sector for at least 6 months. You don't leave this country, you don't know what is called consular invoice. You cannot issue this and all that. Which targets give it to ambassadors? When I was DG of NASIMA, ambassadors were coming to my office to show me the target given to them to generate income out of Nigeria. Should our own culture be the culture of importation? There are 12 varieties of mangoes in the world. 12 of them are found in Benue State. All right, can we get that? Can we get mango juice from Benue? So there are a lot of things we can do. They are low-hanging fruit. It's not borrowing money. Other countries that were member of the WTO, member of Commonwealth and all that, they are not borrowing.
Okay, on that note, we'd like to thank you very much, Dr. John Isemede, for joining us on The Morning Show.
Thank you.